welcome to Retro Warriors episode 460.
Woo!
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by Viable Human Chris Saturn.
Hello.
And nobody else.
Yeah.
It's just us. It feels so quaint and quiet now.
Right?
We even had all four of us on the pre-show, which felt strange.
Yeah, it was.
And then it goes, yeah, it was definitely strange. Real strange. And then now here we are. It's just us.
Yeah.
It's just us hanging out.
All alone.
All alone. I'm having the hardest time. I'm having the hardest time shifting gears from the pre-show to the regular show right now. My week.
Yeah. So for anybody who is not subscribed to our Patreon, you should know that if you subscribe to it, you get to hear our pre-show, which is nonsense. Consistently nonsense. 20
solid minutes of ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
My week. I'm still playing the Pokemon games. I'm not finishing them. I want to be clear. I'm just like starting them, getting 3 or 4 gym badges, and going, now I want to do a different one.
Oh.
Like a kid taking a cookie out and then taking a bite and then stuffing it back in the package.
Right.
So I'd set up my R4 card, and I had set up my Easy Flash. I can't remember what Easy Flash.
Something.
In my head, I want to call it Easy Flash Scooty Puff Jr., which is not. It's from Futurama.
Oh, okay.
That's just all I can think about. I set up my Easy Flash Scooty Puff Jr.
Okay.
And I've been playing Pokemon Soul Silver.
Okay.
And I've been enjoying
Easy Flash DE?
The Easy Flash Omega DE.
Okay.
Is the full name.
I had to look up the notes from the last episode to find out.
And I never played Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and they are insanely expensive games. I mean, like sealed copies with the Pokewalker are going for like $200 plus. And so I was like,
is it because Nintendo always prints very few copies of every Pokemon?
Yeah, that's it, Saturn.
They're super rare.
So I was like, I'm not paying that. I'll just get an R4 card for $30 and play it on that with full RTC support and also cheats and game enhancements. I'll play the better version of it.
Yeah.
And I've been enjoying it. I've always heard that Heart Gold and Soul Silver are kind of regarded as like some of the best of the like original formula Pokemon games. Mm-hmm. Because they, in later entries, they really tried to sort of shake up the standard formula of Pokemon, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver were remakes of Gold and Silver, and so it's second generation, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm having a good time with it. I've been doing that thing where I play for 5 minutes and then I go fuss with my R4 cards some more.
Yeah.
And then I play for and you're kind of in that thing where like you're not really making any progress, and you do keep kind of losing progress because you keep trying weird shit. Mm-hmm. Because there are different like menu systems you can use on R4 cards. So I was like, well, I'll go try Twilight menu because I think I'm in YS menu right now. And then I spent a couple hours trying that, and then booting into Soul Silver, and then trying it, and then going back and forth, and then going back to the original thing. And so I'm not really making any progress in the game.
Right.
But I am enjoying it.
Yeah.
It's been pretty fun. It's been nice going back to the DS. Mm-hmm. I mean, I really love the DS, especially the DS Lite specifically. It's just a really, that's a good console, man. I played so much DS Lite. I love the DS library. I feel like for as much time as I spent with the Nintendo DS, I have not spent much time with it since. So I've got my SD card loaded up with all of my legal game backups.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to go through. Although some of them I forgot how bad they were. Like the DS was popular, so a lot of DS titles got ports elsewhere that were superior versions.
True.
Like I put Puzzle Quest on there.
Yeah.
Because I remember really enjoying like Puzzle Quest 1 and 2, and then the space one, Galactrix or whatever it was called. And I forgot that on the DS one, you can only use the touchscreen.
Oh, yeah.
And I also forgot how fucking unresponsive the DS touchscreen can feel.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so many years of having smartphones running at like 90 hertz instant, response that I'm not used to. I found myself having to remember that I have to apply pressure.
Yeah.
It's
resistive instead of capacitive.
It's resistive, yeah. So I have to and so I was playing Puzzle Quest and I kept trying to slide and nothing was happening, and then I would have to push on it. And so it's been kind of a weird, like, remembering the muscle memory of using the Nintendo DS. But just, man, what a good console, and still cheap. I was on eBay. I was like, how much is a DS now? And if you really want to get like an immaculate one, you're looking at like $90, but you can still find them in like decent-ish condition in like the $40 to $60 range.
Yeah.
Which just feels low to me. Yeah. I don't know if I'm like jaded by the current video games market or what, but like $50 for a DS Lite in 2024, like that feels pretty good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Especially when you can throw on an R4 card, spend less than $100 and play a shitload of games.
Right.
So I was just kind of taken.
It's unfortunate the 3DS has gotten so much more expensive in comparison.
It has, and I don't know. 3DS is good. I like the 3DS library, but
and you can play DS games and GBA games on it.
You can. But the DS Lite having the GBA slot, man, that was. I remember at the time I was like, this is fucking mind blowing. This is too. Which, granted, the Game Boy Advance would play Game Boy, original Game Boy games too. But I
remember
felt
being upset that the DS wouldn't play Game Boy Color games.
Yeah, I don't remember being upset. I think it's because I kept my Game Boys.
I still had my Advance, but I was still upset that I had to use two different handhelds.
I'm still trying to figure out the nuance of using these flash carts. They are definitely different. They're, like I talked last episode, there are weird power constraints. Like I have an IPS modded original model GBA. And if I use my Easy Flash in that, even at full battery, it starts flashing the red battery sign if I put my screen brightness up too much because it's drawing too much power off of these AA's. So now I'm like, well, to play on that, do I need to get like the battery mod? They have battery mods now that supply more power because the way the GBA works is it's like, hey, we just check your voltage. And once your voltage drops below this amount, we assume your battery is low.
Right.
And so when it's drawing too much power, it triggers that, So just weird oddities with flash carts. I've never really messed much with flash carts. I've always just gone the emulation route.
Right.
And I don't know quite what spurred me. Well, I do. It was RTC. Pokemon uses RTC.
Right.
GBA and DS Pokemon games want to use your RTC, and it's a pain in the ass in emulation. But just kind of enjoying exploring the world of DS and GBA flash carts and emulation and where that's all going.
Nice.
Having a good time with that. What have you been doing?
I'm still chipping away at the Shockman games that came out on Xbox. They're hard. They're way harder than I remember.
Oh, I forgot about those.
Yeah. But also, there was a sale the other day. It was a bunch of just random games on sale. And The Sinking City is a Lovecraftian style game that I'd been keeping an eye on it for several years. And the Series X version was on sale if you bought it in a bundle with this Sherlock Holmes game for $7, or you could buy it by itself for $50. And I was like, well, $7 is pretty cheap. I'll pick those up, and it's fine. It feels like a budget action adventure platformer.
This looks like the kind of thing that I would get on like a jewel case.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that.
Like a jewel case game at Walmart for like $9 or whatever.
It feels like a slightly more modern take on that. Yeah.
Yeah, like a little higher fidelity. Like it looks nice.
Yeah.
But
it's okay. I'm kind of enjoying it just because it's goofy Cthulhu-y stuff. Also, I did want to mention. I forgot to mention this the last time we recorded a couple of weeks ago that we had formed a free company for our Final Fantasy 14 group.
Oh, yeah.
So if anybody is playing Final Fantasy 14 and you're on the Marilith server, we did set up a free company. We have a chat going in our Discord about it. So you can
and every couple days I show up in the Discord chat and I say, I should really boot this game back up. Right. So if you want to see me doing that, then you can.
There's currently a cross promotion between Final Fantasy 14 and Yokai Watch. I know nothing about Yokai Watch, but I have.
So you know about ghosts, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with.
You know about Pokemon.
Ghosts are the things that kill you in Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within, right?
Imagine ghost Pokemon, but you catch them with touch mini games.
I saw a party in the Party Finder that was just people running around doing fates to try to collect the little yokai things, and the description of their party was the Yoshi P is stored in the Pokeballs.
God damn it.
That got me. I liked that. But no, I had booted up my PS5 the other day because I had not booted it up in a little while, and I remembered that I have it and I should use it every now and then. And I loaded up Final Fantasy 14 just to see, if I still had everything configured right on it, and it looks better than the Xbox version. It made me realize that
the Xbox version has been kind of a shit show of a launch.
Yeah, it like graphically, it is just a touch better, like shading and stuff looks better on the PS5 version. But more importantly, the load time is much better than the Xbox version, and I don't know how they're doing that. But that is a little disappointing. But on the other hand, my PS5, anytime it changes from standard to HDR when I launch a game, will just completely bork my receiver to the point where I have to reboot my receiver to see any video at all from my PS5.
Oh, nice.
So, give and take. The vibration is also much nicer on PS5. I do like the adaptive rumble and everything.
You're telling me that a Japanese company made the PS5 version of the game better than the Xbox version?
Who would have thought? It's crazy.
This is ridiculous.
Right?
It's ridiculous.
But no, it's just chipping away at that, collecting all my little yokai medals so that I can get a goofy cat couch mount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I want to fly around on a couch shaped like a cat.
That's what's important in life.
Yes.
I'm in a phase in the game where I just have a shitload of busy work stuff to do, and every time I log in, I just don't feel like doing it.
What we should do is there is a dungeon that you could have unlocked a little while ago called Palace of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a randomly generated dungeon that's 200 floors long. And as soon as you and optionally your party enter, you drop to level 1, and you have to level up and get all your items and everything while you're in there.
That sounds super duper fun.
Right? We should all get together and do Palace of the Dead.
We should. I log in now and I forgot all the dungeons. I forgot all of because the game uses a lot of visual indicators. I hate those things. I was never good at them to begin with. But now I'm like, fuck, what does a purple triple arrow mean? Oh, shit. And then everyone else in the party is like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
Right.
And so I just feel like a dumbass. So I need to re-educate myself. And then whenever I do figure shit out, it's like, well, what do I have to do? Oh, a bunch of busy work.
Yeah.
And then all my quests are either MSQ busy work of talk to this person, I'll talk to this person, or hard mode dungeons, which I don't want to jump into, not remembering the tells. So we do need to sit down and play together some night. I think that would be useful.
I think Palace of the Dead would be a good warm-up just because it'll reteach you everything because it starts you back at level 1 and has you re-obtain all your abilities as you level up. Yeah. So it's a nice way to get warmed back into it.
Yeah. Let's do the news.
Okay.
First up, Zlog is discontinuing the Z80. That's right, the Z80 after 48 years of production. I didn't know they were still making Z80s.
Now, Z80s were used in the original Pac-Man cabinets. They were used in the Sega Master System. And in the Genesis for the Master System backwards compatibility.
Weren't they in the Game Boy? Was the Game Boy Z80?
I think they might have been in the Game Boy. I know that they were also used in TI's calculators, like the TI-82. And in recent years, TI has switched to using the Z280, which is Zlog's slightly better version of the same processor, which I believe is backwards compatible with instructions for the Z80. So this isn't like a complete destruction of the Z80 family, but the original one is getting discontinued, which is bizarre that it's even kept up for almost 50 years.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Right?
Sony acknowledges that they will not be bringing Little Big Planet 3 servers back online, so all user-created content is officially gone forever. Gee willikers. Awesome.
It's sad because we just recently had the Wii U shut down, and right before it, everybody backed up all the Mario Maker levels so that all these user-created levels could be preserved for all time. Whereas Little Big Planet 3 just kind of unceremoniously went offline a couple months ago, and Sony was like, "Ooh, it's an accident. Maybe we'll get it back." And now they're like, "Never mind, it's gone forever."
How does Sony accidentally do that?
I don't know.
How do what if someone trip over a fucking cord? What is kind of rinky-dink ass operation are they running over there?
Look, oops. They're just a teeny tiny multi-billion-dollar international corporation.
Damn it. A modder has made a tiny Wii the size of a 2.5-inch external hard drive. Someone mentioned this in the chat, and I think I agree with it, that one, I love the ingenuity behind these tiny consoles. For people that don't know, a lot of modders now are creating these challenges where they cut the PCB of these consoles and then recreate the original shell such that it looks the same, but it's a teeny tiny baby version.
Yeah, it's adorable.
And on the one hand, it's awesome, but on the other hand, they end up destroying a lot of consoles in the process.
Granted, it's the Wii. There's a shitload of them out there.
Yeah, the Wii, I think, is one where we've got enough surplus. I think we could probably destroy a few million Wii systems and still be fine.
I do like that it still has GameCube controller ports on it, even though it's
with
tiny.
a little dongle.
Yeah. It uses a dongle to, I want to say 3.5 millimeter slot. It might be 2.5 millimeter slot, but that's adorable to me. I love the idea of that.
Embracer Group will be splitting into 3 companies: Asmodee, Coffee Stain and Friends, and Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends. 2 of those are sequels to Garfield and Friends. So we can look forward to those on Fox Saturday mornings.
Yeah, every now and then Coffee Stain and Friends will be replaced with U.S. Acres.
Embracer CEO Lars Wingfors admits that he deserves some criticism. There was also a story where he came out and said that he feels real bad about the layoffs.
Yeah,
and let me just say this, Lars. Nobody fucking cares about how you feel. You kept your fucking job.
And your
Lars.
bonus.
And your bonus.
Yeah.
So nobody fucking cares about your dumbass feelings, you shithead.
Yeah.
You know what they would like better than your bad feelings?
Their jobs.
Jobs.
Yeah.
They would like jobs.
Yeah.
Give them jobs, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ.
This has kind of been coming ever since their deal fell apart.
Yep.
And maybe they should have thought that there was a chance that deal wouldn't have happened before they ballooned into an enormous corporation that couldn't keep itself afloat.
Are you saying that they should not have expected perpetual growth?
It's bizarre. But fortunately...
How dare you say this to Lars, who still has a job?
Fortunately, the surviving company, which will be Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends, will be forking off all of its debt onto Asmodee, so they don't have to worry about it anymore.
This is upsetting as shit to me. For people that don't know, Asmodee is massive in tabletop space. They own something like 28 subsidiary tabletop companies, including like the Catan Company, Fantasy Flight Games, Gamegenic. There's Z-Man Games.
Yeah.
And so all of the debt that Embracer has accrued with these video game companies is getting shoved off onto Asmodee.
Yep.
And I don't know what anybody knows about the tabletop space, but there's not a lot of fucking profit in it compared to other entertainment industries. Yeah. And this has the capacity to really crush out a lot of tabletop stuff. So it's extremely upsetting that they're gonna fucking Toys R Us this thing into the ground, which is what happened to Toys R Us, which was in the black and then got saddled with debt. Thanks, Bain Capital. Anyway,
same thing that happened to Warner Brothers now. That's why they're canceling all those movies.
As well. Yep. I just, God damn it.
Mm-hmm.
IGN has announced a new in-person convention to fill the shoes of E3. They're calling it a fan convention, and I think that's what E3 has wanted to be for a number of years anyway.
Right.
Something for the consumers, for the fans. So
it's not like people were really announcing new products there, because why would they do that when they can do it on their own terms?
For people that don't remember, E3 was a trade show. You had to be in the industry.
Right. Just like CES.
But everyone acted like it was just PAX or something. Like that's not what it is. Yeah. You know, it is an industry event for the industry.
Right.
And it had just been turned into this event that's still an industry event, but also really for the public more than it's for the industry.
Well, it's because the industry wasn't using it anymore.
So I don't love IGN, but I'm not against this. Sure. Totally. A new cart
better than Jeff Keighley doing it.
That's true. Thank God. I'm glad he's not. A new cart has been announced that allows the Game Boy to function as an FM radio.
That's neat.
In case you need something to stick in your fallout shelter, I guess. ESA confirms that its members do not support digital libraries for game preservation.
Because they're assholes.
Yeah, because fuck us, right?
Right?
Fuck
preservation.
People that care about games.
That might get in the way of profit.
Thankfully, Extreme G and Iggy's Wreckin' Balls have been preserved on Nintendo Switch Online Plus Plus. Were they going to ever put good games on it, you think? Or are they just going to keep squeezing out shit? Like, what's the deal?
Are you implying that Iggy's Wreckin' Balls isn't like premier top class N64?
I mean, it's no Buck Bumble or Glover or Jet Force Gemini. Okay.
I think Glover's on Steam at least.
Is it? Oh, yeah. There was that weird Glover re-release.
Yeah.
Atari is bringing back the Infogram brand for some reason. We don't really know why. Atari's been making some good moves, so maybe this is a good sign.
Well, they already sold off all of Infogram's properties.
Right, but now they can slap the name on something unrelated and pretend like they do a good.
It struck me as funny because like 20 years ago, Infogram started using the Atari name because Atari still had credibility from way back in the day, and they're like, oh, look, we have credibility. And now, after they've run the Atari name into the ground, they're bringing back the Infogram name.
I'm so tired of this cycle of corporations building goodwill with customers, grinding the customers into the dirt and destroying all the goodwill, and then slowly building it back up like it's some kind of like awesome nostalgia play. Like, no, man, you fucking tanked it.
Right.
And now you're trying to recover because you fucking tanked it for short-term profits.
Yep.
You assholes. You did it. It's like if someone punched you in the face and then wanted to like give you a massage. Like, I'd stop. Just don't
fix
do
that
either.
punch hole I made.
Just that punch hole. Which brings us to our topic at hand.
Oh, you skipped one.
Oh, no, I did. Valve closed a loophole regarding refunds on early access games. So what they did was, it used to be that whenever a game, in air quotes, released, meaning it switched from early access into full release, even if you had played 1,000 hours of it in early access, you could still request a refund because the game wasn't technically out yet.
Yeah, because you hadn't played 2 hours since release.
And so now early access games are going to be beholden to the same standards as released games, which are 2 hours or 2 weeks, whichever
which is
occurs
fine.
first. Which, that I'm okay with that one.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, like, I don't know. I was going to say Valve, there's not much Valve can do. Valve is very open about early access.
Yeah.
Like, when you go to buy an early access game, they have big warnings that are like, hey, this is an incomplete game. You are investing in a product that is not done. This is buy at your own risk. It is going to be incomplete. But I think people still just treat it like
a pre-order.
A pre-order bonus. And it's like, nah, man, like, the game you buy could end up being a really different game from the one that you end up playing on release day, you know? And like, so I think it's just a little bit of consumer responsibility here would go a long ways, I think.
True.
I think we have a habit. Now, granted, we have this habit because companies train us to have this habit, right? They train us to treat Kickstarter and early access like they're pre-orders because they want our full amounts of dollars and cents now before they've made the thing.
Exactly.
Instead of us buying a product, they want us to buy the promise that they will make a product.
Oh, speaking of, I got my copy of Ayuden Chronicles this week.
Oh, how is that?
It's neat. I hear the Switch version is bad, but I'm not playing on
$50 neat?
I don't know. I haven't gotten far enough to say definitively. I am saying that I am enjoying it. It feels very PS1 RPG, but streamlined for the modern age.
I see. I think I would like that. I don't know.
It's on Game Pass. You can try it out.
I don't think I have Game Pass right now.
How dare you?
I'd have to resub. I was gonna pick it up just because the hype, but then it was $50, and I was like, I don't know. Yeah. Which now brings us to our topic at hand, which is Compile's Crush Pinball series, which is a loosely collected series of video pinball games with very different themes.
Yes.
I didn't know there were so many of them before we started this, but there are several.
Yeah.
Release info, these were originally released from 1998 through 1993 with a brief 1988 through 1993 with a brief resurrection in 2008, which we'll get to. They're mostly developed by Compile and published in Japan by Naxat with some exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
As far as first encounters, the Crush games were always just those two TurboGrafx pinball games to me.
Yeah.
To the point that I kind of assumed they were first-party titles. Because
in the U.S. they were.
Oh, is that? Maybe that's why I think that. I just assumed that they were. I assume they were pack-ins. Because they're very synonymous with the TurboGrafx here in the States. Anytime like around the time I picked up my PC Engine, I messed around with them. I enjoyed them a little bit, but then I just kind of moved on to, other more complex affairs. And I would say never really gave them the time of day, which maybe was unfair, especially given my enjoyment of Demon's Tilt and Xeno Tilt, that we'll probably talk about later. They were just kind of there for me. I didn't play them as much as I played Space Cadet. Pinball, but
nobody has played any pinball as much as we have collectively played Space Cadet.
I wonder if like worldwide, Space Cadet Pinball is the most played pinball game of all time.
I wonder if Maxis feels really dumb for letting Microsoft give that one away for free.
They have to, right?
Right.
I mean, they have to. Anyway, what about you? First encounters.
So I probably just skipped right by them back in the day, just because video pinball was not something I was particularly interested in. Because I
a dime a dozen too for a little bit there.
Well, also, I had played video pinball on the Atari 2600, and that's real bad. It's real bad. So I just kind of ignored it. I was not particularly interested in pinball. And then when I started emulating TurboGrafx in the late 90s, I had seen several of the handful of TurboGrafx websites out there, which there weren't very many at the time, would say that these were some of the better games on the system. So then I went back and gave them a shot, and they're fun and they are neat. And as far as video pinball goes, I feel like they've got a little more interesting theming than what you would see from contemporary games, anyway.
I think so. I think also, I feel like Alien Crush. Mm-hmm. Like that, whenever I would go try to check them out, I would start with Alien Crush every time. And as I'm going to talk about later, I think I vastly prefer Devil's Crush.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe I was doing myself a disservice by focusing on the earlier one.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the games. So the Crush series starts with Alien Crush. Yep. Came out on the Turbo, published in Japan by Naxat Soft in 1988, in North America by NEC in 1989. So it was first party published in America. It was followed up by Devil's Crush, known in Japan as Devil Crash. The Genesis version was known as Devil Crash MD in Japan, and Dragon's Fury internationally for some inexplicable fucking reason.
My guess is they wanted to not use the word devil in the title because of, how parents were reacting to games already at this point. Like NEC apparently did not care, but I guess Tingen or Sega did.
I don't know that I buy that Sega cared. Sega's whole thing was in your face. That was their thing.
In your face violence and devilly stuff were definitely treated differently in that era.
I guess that's true. On the Turbo, Devil's Crush was published by Japan, in Japan by Naxat Soft 1990. Again, NEC in North America. The Genesis version was published in Japan by Technosoft in 91. And North American and European territories, it was published by Tengen, which was Atari in 1992.
Atari Games.
We got Jockey Crush or Jackie Crush. I'm not sure how to say it.
Me either.
But this one was only in Japan. It's on the Super Famicom, came out in 1992. We have Dragon's Revenge, which was not developed by Compile. This was developed and published by Atari Games in all regions in 1993. Mm-hmm. And then finally we have Alien Crush Returns, the oft-forgotten WiiWare title, developed by Tamsoft and published by Hudson in 2008.
Yeah.
Which I think makes it technically first party. I mean, it wasn't a Turbo game, but I guess it was
a WiiWare
published
game,
by Hudson. So
apparently Hudson or Konami at this point, I guess, had picked up the rights to the series at some point between Naxat Soft kind of dissolving and the WiiWare era.
Yeah. As far as special note, it is the covers of the two Genesis entries from Tengen are especially stupid.
Oh man, they look so bad. I love them.
And I looked these up. They're very bad.
And the second one just straight up reuses the art from the first one.
I think it's especially upsetting because, like, I don't know, like, they must have had the same art, because, like, a lot of Turbo games in America had the same art style. I think they must have been the same artist.
Yeah.
And, like, the Devil's Crush cover for the Turbo version is awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome looking. Yeah. And then these ones are just real fucking derpy.
Yeah, they're so stupid.
And bad.
I love it.
As far as scope, there were more than two games, but we're going to focus on the two most well-known entries.
Yeah.
These are the ones I think we've both played the most. These are the ones that I have a feeling we probably enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
And also, like, the Genesis port of Devil's Crush was I don't believe done. It wasn't done by Compile. The Dragon's Revenge also wasn't
Right.
And Alien Crush also wasn't.
Well, Alien Crush, the WiiWare game.
Returns. Alien Crush Returns also wasn't. So there's some weird development here where we're going to try to focus on the compile ones.
Yes.
Specifically.
Yeah.
So step us through development for the Crush pinball games.
Well, I would, but there's not really any information out there.
What? Late 80s video pinball game doesn't have extensive development notes?
It's bizarre. So they were developed by Compile, but since Alien Crush was the first game that Naxxitsoft ever put out, I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about Naxxitsoft for a second, because
yes, please.
A weird thing we'll never be able to talk about again. So there was a Japanese electronics company that was Kaga Electronics, Kaga, and they had formed a European branch in the 80s called Taxan that sold IBM-compatible computers and equipment.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I remember seeing Taxan on some games.
You did.
Okay, all
but
right.
Not in the UK. So the European branch was mostly computers in the UK, and they decided they wanted to make a US office, and they brought on this guy, Ken Lobb, who would run their U.S. office. At first, he was just a product manager, but eventually he became the head of the U.S. office. And you may know Ken Lobb because he's one of the co-creators of Killer Instinct, and also the reason why GoldenEye's gun is called the Klob. It's K Lob.
I remember being a kid and wondering what the fuck a Klob was and why they would name a gun the Klob.
Yeah, just because of Ken Lobb. So Lobb was more interested in video games and toys than he was in computers and electronics. So he kind of turned Taxan's USA branch into a video game company, and they started making games on the NES and the Game Boy. Stuff like the first G.I. Joe game was made by Taxan. And around that same time, Taxan's...
They also did Star Soldier on NES.
Yeah, they did the US release of it anyway, because Hudson did the Japanese version.
Yeah.
So around the same time, Taxan's parent company, Kaga, who didn't really make video games much in Japan, wanted to make a software branch to make video games that they called Kaga Create, but they wanted to have a more video gamey name. So they took the name of their Western branch, Taxan, and just turned it around into Naxat.
I was trying to figure out what game I remember owning that had the Taxan logo on it, and it's Low G-Man.
Oh, yeah, Low G-Man was one of them.
Because it's Low G-Man has that yellow-ass cover where all you can see is Low G-Man's feet.
Yep.
And it has it's yellow and it has that bright green Taxan right on it.
Yeah.
That's where I was remembering it from.
His feet are floating because he's in Low G.
Right, obvious. Obvious. If you're moving fast like that, wouldn't that be high G? I guess the G is gravity.
Yeah.
Not like G-force.
Right, yeah, it's gravity.
I don't know that they thought that through very well.
So, aside from the Crush games, Naxxit was mostly known for their shmups. They had some successful carnival shooters like Spriggan and Rekka and Nexer. And as the consoles evolved, they kind of slowly trickled down to just releasing Mahjong games by the 2000s before eventually being shut down in the 2000s, and then Kaga itself shut down in 2015, and the rights of their games were spread between various companies, mostly Konami.
Is Rekka related at all to the anime?
I'm not familiar with an anime.
Flame of Rekka?
Oh, no, I don't believe so, no.
Okay. I always just wondered that. I've not experienced enough of either to know, and I just always assumed because it's a non-English sounding word, so I'm like, that must be related.
See, mine was always Spriggan. I always wondered if the Spriggan games were related
Spriggan
to the
as well.
Spriggan anime, but I don't
because
think they
Spriggan
are.
was an anime and got a re-release recently. Netflix did a new Spriggan series, and it's like a kind of like hard near future sci-fi military-esque kind of anime is what Spriggan is.
Yeah, and I don't think the Spriggan games are actually related to the anime, but they might be. I'm not sure because I can't read them. I just know they're decent shmups.
It could also be one of those things where like it is but isn't related. You know what I mean?
Right. Where
let's see.
The licenses are just kind of tacked on.
It is. No, see, that's the manga because I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. I think they just use the same word.
Yeah, and I think the same is true with Rekka because I think, if I remember right, Rekka is generally just a standalone game.
Yeah,
because it was the carnival game on NES. That's incredibly impressive, by the way.
Wreck is great.
Oh yeah.
Very, 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 very good. If you like carnival shmups, which are like super short competition focused shmup games.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Oh yeah.
Really, really fun game. Yeah. Let's talk presentation for Alien and Devil's Crush. They both present a very highly thematic field with appropriate sprites. Alien Crush is split into 2 main screens, while Devil's Crush is split into a kind of almost too much 3 main screens. Even the plunger, the paddles, the bumpers are all completely themed to their respective games. Some of the later games even theme their multi-balls. Whenever you get a multi-ball, it's like themed to the game. I really love the plungers in both games are very cool. The Jockey Crush plunger 2 is like this weird, like almost clockwork looking like claw thing that grabs your ball and spins as it goes down before it launches it.
Nice.
So in the realm of like thematic pinball, they're very thematic.
It does feel like they are taking advantage of the fact that they are not a physical machine.
Yes,
to
which
be
is
a little more
oddly
interesting.
something you don't see a ton. Like I was playing the GBA Pokemon Pinball earlier because I was testing out the Rumble in the Easy Flash. And so I got a patched version of the game that adds Rumble to the handheld because the cart itself didn't have Rumble. It had Game Boy Player Rumble.
Right.
And I was playing it, and I was like, I mean...
think Pokemon Pinball had Rumble in the cart because it had the battery
Did it have
on
it? Huh. Well, I had to patch it for some reason. I don't know what the patch was
Maybe
about.
just to make it work with the flash card.
Maybe that was it. Anyway, well, no, your Pokemon Pinball and GBC had Rumble in the cart.
Yeah.
I don't think the GBA one did.
Oh, the GBA?
really don't.
No, I don't know
Yeah,
about the GBA one. That might have just been on Game Boy Player.
So I was playing GBA Pokemon Pinball, and I was like, one, the Pokemon Pinball games are really fun if no one's ever played them. They have a catch mechanic where you're actually catching Pokemon, and it gives you something to do other than just racking up high score, which is kind of a nice break from the action, a nice objective change in pinball. But also the table itself is like, there are some Pokemon on it, but it like your ball is a Pokeball, which is pretty thematic. But then the table is just kind of like a pinball table. You know what I mean? Like it looks very much like even the Pokemon that are on it look very much like they would be like little figurines inside of an actual pinball table. And it's like this isn't really taking advantage of the level of theme that you can add to a pinball game when it is fully digital.
Yeah.
And so I do want to give credit to both Alien and Devil's Crush. Really, all the Crush games are really good about having highly, highly thematic tables.
Yeah.
Which is really nice. Really, the only thing that's not themed. The flippers are not really themed.
They're themed like pinball flippers.
Yeah, they don't look quite like regular pinball flippers. They have kind of a different style to them. And then the ball is just a silver ball most of the time. So yeah, both games are very highly thematic visually, which is really nice. I think the music is good in both. There's not a ton of tracks to choose from,
but it doesn't detract from the gameplay.
Right. In some instances, you get to pick which track you listen to, which is cool. But it's just sort of there. It's in the background. It's not the most incredible music, but it's serviceable.
Right.
Both games do feature very big sprites, which was a
thing at the time, especially in early TurboGrafx marketing.
Yeah, specifically the Turbo is like, look at how big our fucking sprites are.
Right.
And I feel like we've seen that a lot, and it is backed up here. Individual little enemy characters are kind of small-ish, but then you have like the big lady lizard face in the middle of like Devil's Crush is really, really big.
Yeah.
The Alien Crush table has a big giant like alien face in the middle of the main portion of the table. So there's some real big sprites. Even some of the boss enemies have just very large sprites on the screen. So that was nice to see. As far as gameplay, it's pinball. You hit the ball and it goes and it bounces. Bounces off things.
It is more pinball than Sonic Spinball is, but less pinball than a physical pinball machine.
Yeah, I feel like that's correct.
Yeah.
As far as the actual pinball action, I do feel like there are times when both games, Alien and Devil's Crush, feel a little imprecise.
I could see that, yeah.
I've had instances of balls getting stuck in loops for kind of suspicious amounts of time. And so that feels a little weird. And nothing that has broken the games.
Right.
But if you're like a diehard pinball person, because we were talking in the chat, and I think Saracen in the chat was like, I vastly prefer the Mega Drive Devil's Crush to the Turbo. And I played it and I was like, I don't like this at all. and this is just me totally guessing because I know he's a big pinball head.
Yeah.
And I suspect that maybe the physics in the Mega Drive version just feel more pinball-esque because these do feel, they're very video gamey.
I will say that they felt better than a lot of other contemporary pinball games, though.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're bad. They're not noticeably bad to me.
Right.
But there are moments where I'm like, that felt a little weird.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you're a diehard pinball fan, you might be like, the physics are a little strange. I don't know how realistic of a pinball simulation this game provides.
I refuse to believe that a game that has an alien head sticking out of the middle of the board isn't an accurate simulation.
I know. It's a lot to take in. Both games feature enemies that kind of filter out onto the field and can be defeated by hitting them with the ball. Devil's Crush does this much more than Alien Crush, and Devil's Crush in particular, they really like to kind of clog the field with enemies.
Yeah, it does make it feel a little more video gamey.
It does. It feels much more like a video game, like there is an objective to do, kind of like in the Pokemon pinball games, where like there's something to do other than just get points, which granted, hitting the guys just gives you points.
True.
So it's kind of same thing. But it does also put up, it makes things feel a little more dynamic because these enemies are coming out and there's this constant train of them, and the state of how many enemies you've hit kind of changes your shots in interesting ways. So I think it makes Devil's Crush feel a little more dynamic, whereas Alien Crush is a little sparser with the stuff it has floating around on the screen. The sprites are kind of there sometimes, but like especially in the mid and top sections of Devil's Crush, like there's like it's clogged. There's a lot of dudes just sort of packed in there, especially in the top where they're like surrounding that pentagram, and there's like a whole wall of dudes you have to push through.
Right.
But I like it. I think it definitely differentiates it. It makes it feel like there's a little bit more going on. It makes the table feel more dynamic. I think just the amount of enemies is part of the reason I enjoy Devil's Crush so much more than Alien Crush. Like I think Alien Crush is like, I think it's more cleanly designed, if that makes sense. Like it's just a little more pure.
Yeah.
And Devil's Crush is more like, we're going to put all sorts of shit in this thing and see what happens.
It's more exciting.
Yeah.
From a video game perspective.
Yeah. Each table does have hidden areas that can be unlocked by completing tasks, which basically involve hitting your ball into little portals.
Right.
And they take you to boss rooms, which are kind of another big video game conceit of this, that you can have a ball going to a different zone.
Yeah.
Which we've seen before in other pinball games. I think like Kirby Pinball does it, which I think was later than this, but kind of around the same era. You know, it was only a few years later.
It was because even the first Kirby game was after this.
Yeah. I was trying to remember if Revenge of the Gator has different sub areas, and I believe it does. And I know that would have been an earlier game. I still think it would have been after this, but I'd have to check the date on it. But the hidden areas are kind of the big draw. They're where you fight these little boss enemies. I want to say that there's 6 of them in Devil's Crush, but I don't rightly remember. 6 feels like the correct number. And as far as I
encountered them all, so I can't say for that.
Devil's Crush also has different versions where like the bottom half of the boss field will be different than the top half sometimes. And I'm not quite sure what activates that, where like my flippers will be in a different position.
Right.
Or I'll have like 2 holes in the bottom with 2 sets of flippers, or just one, and it'll put in these like auto shooting little pits on either side of my flippers for the ball. But I like the boss fights quite a bit. They're fun. It's all just hit the thing with pinballs a bunch of times.
Right.
You know.
But it breaks up the rest of it.
It does, yeah. I think my favorite enemy is the weird multi-headed wormy looking dragon thing that shrieks at you the whole time. That one was fun. There's also one with big skulls that looks really awesome, really huge skull sprites, and they have these little like projectiles that come out that are constantly like getting in the way that you have to keep pushing through, kind of much like the enemies. So yeah, I think Devil's Crush feels more like a video game, with Alien Crush feeling more kind of pinball-like.
I do like that the skulls have little eyeballs in them.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
Devil's Crush, both really Devil's Crush more than Alien Crush, I feel, but is the almost kind of like so grotesque and ugly, it's cute kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, we have to talk about the lady in the middle of the field. I don't know if she has a name.
She's just the Devil's Crush lady.
But in the middle of Devil's Crush, there's this lady, and all you see is her face embedded in the field, and when you hit her once, her eyes go all derpy.
Yeah.
And then you keep hitting her, and she slowly morphs into a giant lizard monster?
She's on the cover of both the TurboGrafx and Genesis versions, and both of them have very different interpretations of what she's supposed to look like.
Well, the Turbo version is her, like, lizard form.
Yeah.
And then the Genesis version is her human form, isn't it?
Yeah, and in the Japanese version of both Turbo and Genesis is also her human form with a single tear going down her cheek.
Yeah, Dragon's Revenge is
the
particularly bad. And granted, she looks goofy as shit, but she looks goofy in the video game too. Yeah. So it had to have been on purpose. Also on the cover of Dragon's Revenge, she looks like she has no clothes on.
Yeah.
Which I found a little strange.
Weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently there is a plot. I was trying to look at it because the Devil's Crush has no plot, but if you look up Dragon's Revenge, that one has a plot. But that one, so I don't know how much of it is related or how much of it isn't. But then again, this is the one that was made by Tengen, so
yes, so
does it count or doesn't it?
Right.
Because that lady is on the cover of Dragon's Revenge, so presumably it's the same lady from Devil's Crush. But it has a whole thing of like a village keep that's been enslaved, and you have to guide your magic balls to go on this quest.
Yeah, I don't know that I buy their story.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it either. You know, I did play a bit of Jackie Crush. I didn't love this one because it has a staggered mid-table flipper. Mm-hmm. So in Alien Crush and Devil's Crush, the flippers up through the middle are right next to each other. They're so they're standard kind of pinball flippers next to each other in each section. Jockey Crush, in the middle, you have one flipper on the right side and a little ways up another flipper on the left side.
Okay.
And I don't like that.
You see that every now and then on an actual table.
You do, for sure, yeah. But I just don't love it here. Mm. It's like I keep forgetting I don't have a left flipper immediately into the middle of the table. And the way the table's designed is, it just feels a little more cramped than Alien or Devil's Crush did for me. I don't know. I struggle to squeeze very much enjoyment out of Jockey Crush. Like, visually, it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's a very cool looking game. It's like a Japanese mythology themed with like Japanese demons and ogres and stuff, which is really cool. But it just, I don't know. It didn't feel like a noticeable step up over Devil's Crush.
That's fair
for me. It looked nicer. It might have physically, like the physics of it might have felt a little nicer, but yeah, just wasn't as cool, you know.
Also, there's no devils. Well, they're Japanese style devils.
Yeah, there's demons.
Yeah, right. I guess.
Reception wise, it was well received. Got a 33 out of 40 from Famitsu. This is Alien Crush specifically. Yes. 8.75 out of 10 from Game Informer. 8 stars from Turbo Play. Devil's Crush, comparatively, was well received and seems to be slightly more praised in modern reviews compared to Alien Crush, but at the time seemed to receive less coverage than Alien Crush. I have a feeling it was because it came out on the TurboGrafx in 1990.
Yeah, that's just before they started to kind of wind down the Turbo, because that was before Super NES, in the West anyway. And it might have just been that, it was more pinball on TurboGrafx that just wasn't something that magazines were going to give a lot of attention to.
Yeah, there just weren't a lot of, like, when you look at the Wikipedia page, like the reviews listed, you've got GameSpot, which I think is a contemporary review for them. You've got Nintendo Life, which was the virtual console release review. And then you have Megatech, which really liked it. It gave it a 91, but I don't fucking know anything about Megatech.
Yeah, I don't think
it was a UK
GameSpot
magazine.
was around at the time, so it would have been a retroactive review from GameSpot.
Yeah, so it didn't get as much.
Ironically, Jackie Crush got some attention from EGM.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, they showed a whole preview for it, thinking that it was going to come out over here. Ended up giving the game an 86.
Oh, I do see. Game Fan, what the fuck scale is this? 306 out of 400, Game Fan?
Each
what
person
the fuck
got
does
to give
that
100.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see Super Play, Mega Fan, Joypad, and Joystick. So it seemed to get more media attention than Devil's Crush did.
I think it's
at
just
the
the
time.
Super NES was more popular in the US than the Turbo by far. And
Maybe.
that just led to people assuming that this would also get released over here.
Maybe. As far as legacy, the TurboGrafx games have been re-released on Virtual Console and on PlayStation Network for the PS3, PSP, PlayStation Vita. Alien Crush came out on Wii, PSN, 3DS in Japan, Wii U, Devil's Crush on Wii, PSN in Japan and Wii U. And then we have to talk about Alien Crush Returns.
Okay.
Did you play?
No, I did not
Returns?
play this one, no.
Because
I played a lot of the return style Hudson WiiWare games back then.
Some of them are fun.
Some are okay.
Yeah. So for people that don't remember, this was kind of a line of games of the return. What were all the returns? I know there was a Gradius Returns, which I was playing Gradius Returns. I really, really like that Gradius.
That is Gradius Rebirth.
Rebirth, that's what I'm thinking.
Konami
it wasn't
called theirs
Returns.
Rebirth, and Hudson at least called this one Returns. But Hudson's other kind of Wii reboots were things like Adventure Island and oh, now I'm blanking on them because I have them all. Star Soldier was one of them.
Yeah.
I have them all on my Wii right now. I just forgot what all the rest of them are. But most of them got actual disc released.
I played Alien Crush Returns, and it was
a WiiWare game.
So here's my problem. Obviously, yes, it's a WiiWare game, so the graphical fidelity leaves a little bit to be desired.
Yeah.
It's not an amazing game as far as like graphical fidelity, but the aesthetics are what upset me.
It just kind of looks gross to me.
It does. So Alien Crush, for people that haven't played it, was a very vibrant, like pinkish, purpley
cartoony game.
Cartoony kind of game. I mean, like some of the aliens, like it looks a little sinister and kind of like H.R. Geiger-y, but in like a 80s kids cartoon kind of way, if that makes sense. You know, everything's very like purple, green, pink.
The WiiWare version just has mouths everywhere.
Yeah, the WiiWare version, like, there's still a little bit of color, but a lot of it just like, it looks like the innards of an alien.
Yeah.
Like
which is kind of like the route that Salamander went back in the day. But it was, again, more colorful, more cartoony, less gross.
Yeah. The transition to more realistic graphics, I think, was a mistake. It just looks kind of like brown and gut. It just looks like guts.
Yeah.
Okay. I
looks
was
like guts
playing
and poop.
It does. It looks like guts and poop. There are some portions of the table that are more vibrant. They have some of these colors mixed in, but the main portion of the table is just really brown. Like it looks like you're in an alien's colon. And then the bumpers on either side next to your flippers are like these weird, they look like fucking kidneys. It's just kind of gross, man. And not in a fun way like Alien Crush was fun. Not in that cool, like Mad Max gross kind of way. It's gross in the like, I feel like I'm looking at a medical textbook. There's like cloacas in places where you're like, oh, why is this? This is gross.
This in a video game.
Yeah. I visually I couldn't get into Alien Crush Returns. It plays okay.
Yeah.
It's not stellar. I think it's disappointing that it was lumped in with Alien Crush. I think they should just made it something else.
Yeah, generic gross pinball.
Yeah. The one I didn't make time for was Dragon's Revenge. Yeah, that's the one that I did not make time for. I did not get to sit down with.
Yeah, I didn't sit down and play it. I did watch a video of it, and graphically, I don't like the theming nearly as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of your standard fantasy theming.
Yeah, and that's not my
Not your
style.
bag.
It also has the staggered flippers like Jackie Crush. It looks like so.
Yeah.
And I've heard good things because Saracen in our chat checked it out. He seemed to enjoy it.
Yeah.
So.
If I remember right, he owns at least a pinball table, possibly more. So
Nice.
Pinball is definitely his thing.
Yeah. More his thing than ours anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Final thoughts. It feels like a kind of a weird grouping of games.
Yeah, it does feel a little mishmashed sometimes.
Like Alien and Devil's Crush feel pretty, like they feel like they belong together. The
Yeah.
rest of these, the other three, it feels kind of weird.
Yeah.
It feels kind of strange, especially when you lump in Devil Crash MD. It just feels kind of odd.
Yeah.
I do think Alien and Devil's Crush are really, really good examples of video pinball. I think, like we were talking about, they make use of the medium of video games to be pinball video games instead of just like a virtual pinball table.
Yeah, and the others, I think, at the very least, it's worth seeing where different developers were willing to take the concept.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like they live on by way of Demon's Tilt and Xeno Tilt, which are really, really good.
Yes.
Demon's Tilt is very much like we have cribbed a lot from Devil's Crush.
I think
Like
they
a
wear
lot.
that inspiration on their sleeve.
You got the lady's face in the middle of the table looking all derpy, like
Right.
but both of them are man, I think Xeno Tilt it's still in early access.
yeah,
But they're both really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good pinball games. Really super fun. And I think the original games, especially Devil's Crush, I think is well worth returning to. I think Alien's Crush probably won't hold the modern attention for too incredibly long, but I think is still also worth returning to.
no. And if you're a fan of Demon's Tilt, it is worth going back to see where they got that inspiration.
Oh yeah, like if you like Demon's Tilt, Devil's Crush just it's more of that.
Yeah.
It's more Demon's Tilt, just lower resolution. It's very much Xeno
Less
Tilt.
particle effects.
It's been a minute since I tried Xeno Tilt. I picked it up right when it hit early access, and I remember it feeling pretty different from Alien Crush, but I could just be misremembering. It feels more different from Alien Crush than Demon's Tilt does from Devil's Crush.
Yeah, I constantly get mixed up on which is demon and which is devil when I try to say them real fast.
Yeah. Does it ever bother you that Devil's Crush is possessive and Alien Crush is not?
Yes.
It is the crushing of aliens, but it is the devil owns the crush.
Yeah.
It is possessive.
I know.
Apostrophe S.
And while I was writing the notes, I kept fucking that up a lot.
Like, it should be Devil Crush or Aliens Crush. Those
Right.
are your two options.
Well, it didn't
Why would
help
you-
that in Japan it was Alien Crush and Devil Crash.
That makes less sense.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
And then they went to Jackie Crush after that.
And then Dragon's Revenge is possessive again.
Yeah, but that's a different company.
It is the Dragon's Revenge, but it's the same series. It's considered the same series.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
I will say that Dragon's Fury and Dragon's Revenge are the most cohesive titles in the series. I will give Tim credit for that.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. I think the dumbest name is probably Devil Crash MD, which sounds like the worst 90s hospital drama that I want to see really bad
That
now.
stands for Mega Drive.
Devil Crash MD.
It's the sequel to Doogie Howser MD.
I think I don't know that any of the games in this series are bad. I think
No.
Dragon's Revenge, which is the one we spent the least time with, is the one that seems to be regarded as the least fun of the five, but also all of them are okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I played a single one of these that I was like, this is bad.
Right.
I don't want to play much Alien Crush Returns, and Jockey Crush didn't grab me. Alien Crush and Devil's Crush are still where I'm going to go, but I think as a series, it's a series of at least decent pinball games, kind of across the board.
And it is nice to see something different from Compile, because normally when we see Compile, we either see shooters or Puyo Puyo.
Yeah, and that's basically it.
Yeah,
and then they move on.
Right.
So I think they're worth going back to. It breaks my heart that the TurboGrafx Mini does not have Devil's Crush.
Yeah, I don't know
It
what
only
the
has Alien
issue
Crush.
is there. Yeah.
I don't fucking know either, and I wish someone would hack the damn thing already so that I could. I took it out just assuming that both games are on there. Why the fuck wouldn't they be?
There's a proof of concept hack out there from like 8 months ago now. So it is supposedly one person slowly working on it.
At this point, I don't think there's even enough of them on the fucking market for anyone to care to hack the thing. I think it's the issue.
Yeah.
Because it immediately was like sold out and then gone, and then now you can't get it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it wasn't immediate because we mentioned on the show a month or two after it came out, like, hey, at least it's still available. This is a readily available thing. And then they disappeared.
True. I guess, I mean, it seems like they never did like a second run.
No, they certainly never did a second
run. It was like, here's our first run. When it sells out, it's gone.
Right.
So that's unfortunate. Thanks, Konami.
Yeah.
You fucking did it. And you know what else you did? Our Patreon.
You fucking did.
You fucking did our Patreon at patreon.com/Retro Warriors. You can get Talking Wizards. You can get Read Along. You can get uncut versions of this show. You can get my undying gratitude. My gratitude will never die. After the heat death of the universe, it will continue.
I don't believe you.
It will be the only thing left after the entire universe expands outward into a gray mist, crushing all particles down into infinitesimal sizes of exact uniformity.
Yeah.
Not aliens, not possessive crushing. It is the alien doing the crushing.
Yes.
And we also want to thank our following patrons for their kind donations, starting with Dan, the longtime listener, longer time cheapskate,
and Rantic,
Eric,
Epic Da Vinci,
Hamha, it is I, Napiki the hamster.
My love for you is like a truck berserker.
Joystick Cowboy,
Ed Webb,
Thimble.
This is a lie, and I apologize in advance for having to say this lie. But it is, Riker looks way better without a beard.
That is a lie. Why would you tell such a horrible lie, Saturn?
I don't know. I don't know. Something came over me, Justin.
You awful lying man. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.